Okay, good evening, everybody. I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We hope that you and your families are doing well and staying safe during this time. We will get through this. This Zoom call is really to provide general information. We're more than happy to share resources with everyone later on. At this time, there's a lot of things going on that's outside of our control. Every single school is doing something a little bit different. So even if you have more than one child, their program can look completely different. A lot of this is time consuming, it's stressful. So I'm going to discuss what is in our control and what we can be doing during this time. I just want to point to everyone's attention at the bottom of your screen, there's 3 dots that say more, and you can hit chat from there. You can type any questions in there and I'll try to answer them throughout the presentation. Another thing is we are going to be recording this presentation. We're going to then upload it up to our Facebook page and we're going to have it translated into Spanish as well. For any families that are Spanish speaking, or if you're also more comfortable in Spanish, you'll be able to see this later on translated. So I'm going to go through the 5 things you can do to protect your students' right to services during this time. The first thing is to contact your district about assistive technology. So right now, they're doing teleservices, Google Classrooms, or at least they're trying to transition to that, the district. So you're going to want to make sure that your student has some type of device, whether it be an iPad, a computer. The New York City DOE has been providing devices to families. I know some other districts have been, some districts haven't been. So you're going to want to look into what your district is doing. If you do not have a device, you're going to want to look into getting one. So New York City DOE has a form you can fill out on their website. If you're not part of the New York City DOE, you can write to your district. I would keep documentation. If you're writing to the district, if you're filling out a form, I would screenshot it. If you get a confirmation, save it. Keep all of these things in your records. You want to make sure you know who you contacted, when you contacted them, and how many times you contacted them, maybe even, or the response that you got. Another concern we've been hearing is about whether or not families have Wi-Fi. So if you do not have Wi-Fi, Spectrum and Optimum are offering free Wi-Fi to families. It's a good resource to look into. I've also heard that for families who have an outstanding balance with these providers, they won't set up services. So another potential resource, if you fall into that category, is Wi-Fi hotspots. I heard that some of the providers, such as Xfinity, Spectrum, and Comcast, have opened their networks up to non-subscribers. I have not been able to confirm this yet. I'm not in the New York City area to check that out, but it's definitely something worth trying because if it works, it works. For New York City families in shelters, the DOE is now providing devices with preloaded data plans so that you can access the internet without needing Wi-Fi services. So someone's saying that they filled out the form, emailed CSE, and never got the device. Document those efforts. Try calling your school, try calling the CSE, keep reaching out. Something may never happen, but at least at the end of this, you'll have that documentation and see what you can do from there. If your device is not working, that's another thing to bring to your district's attention. They're not going to know unless you tell them. So you may have already had a device and it was broken before this. You want to bring that to their attention again. Or if you just recently got a device, it's not working. Bring that to somebody's attention and document, like I said before. Another issue families have been having is they were told that they were only allowed 1 device per family, and that's definitely not the case. So you should be receiving 1 device per student, whether that be an iPad or a computer per child. Definitely reach out if you're having that issue as well. If you're outside of New York City, contact your Committee on Special Education. If necessary, try contacting your superintendent, and again, take detailed notes on these things. There might also be situations where you might have to obtain a device on your own. and get reimbursed later on, but that is something you should wait to get the advice of an attorney on. Another important thing is when you're sending emails to try to get read receipts to prove when it was delivered and if somebody read it. It's another way to document what, if anything, happened during this time. For students who have assistive technology devices for communication and they have specific apps for that, some of those apps are offering free training during this time to parents. So one of them that I saw recently was for Touch Chat. So definitely it's worth searching the software your student uses and see if they're offering any trainings. It can be very helpful during this time where the students are home the entire school day. The next tip is to note the services your student missed. So I recommend taking a notebook, using that dedicated notebook for this purpose. And what you should do is take a copy of your son or daughter's IEP, read it over really carefully, and determine what the school is supposed to be providing. So for example, if they're supposed to be getting speech 3 times a week, or if they were supposed to be getting SETS, special education teacher support services, 5 times a week. You want to note whether or not your child's receiving these services. So if nobody's been calling you to provide speech sessions at all, you're supposed to be getting it 3 times a week, you note 0 at the end of the week. If you get it once out of 3 times, you missed 2. Same for classroom instruction and any related services. So you should be noting every single thing they're supposed to be receiving. And I would also write how receiving the service. So is the provider calling you? Are they Zooming or video chatting with your child? Are they only sending worksheets? Are there certain providers you haven't heard from at all? All things to note and keep organized. The next thing is to participate in what's being offered. So if you fail to set up an account for remote learning, or if you don't attempt to engage your child in these services, it might cause you problems later on to obtain any missed services. Document how your student's doing during the long distance virtual services, and remember the program might need to be adjusted. And that's another thing you may want to bring up. If they sent home a list of speech and language and OT examples to do, but they're not individualized to your student. So 2 things there. 1, they're not providing any direct service. Your student's not engaging with the providers, and that's one thing you'd want to note. The next thing is reach out to the provider and let them know, this is not right for my son or daughter because he or she cannot do X, Y, and Z. See what response you get and document who you reached out to, what you said, and what response you got, if any. Okay. Some students might refuse to participate, either for attentional issues, because of their autism, or whatever their disability may be. And I get it, you know, it's not going to be easy for some students and for some parents. You have more than one student at home, and you don't work with them all day, every day in an academic setting. So just note what behaviors they're engaging in, and then your response or attempts to engage them in the work. So you have it that documented, what they were doing, what you tried to get them to do, and go from there. Yep, and it doesn't surprise me that some students are resistant to online learning. So I would document, what are they doing? Are they self-injuring? Are they walking away from the screen? And write down what you try to do in terms of getting them involved. You might not be able to, but all you can do is try. Should we expect a resource teacher to send home supplemental work? So resource room and SETS, what I was talking about before, special education teacher support services, are kind of used interchangeably. So that's a service that's on your student's IEP, and it should be something that's being provided during this time of distant learning. Okay, the next tip I have is to participate in IEP meetings, individualized education program meetings, either by phone, by Skype, by Zoom, whatever means you can. If the district is trying to reschedule a meeting with you, make sure that you secure a specific date not too far out. You got to be reasonable. Obviously, this came to a surprise to everybody, but don't let them take advantage of you either. You know, it might take them a few weeks to get adjusted to this, but don't let them say, oh, we will hold a meeting next year if you were supposed to have a meeting 2 weeks ago. And tell them you're available, whatever means it may be, phone, Skype, Zoom. You obviously don't have to attend this meeting in person. They're not having these meetings in person right now anyway, but I would push them for these telephonic meetings. And you can address, one, any concerns you had prior to COVID-19 and any concerns you're having now that they're home. So someone was mentioning their student is completely resistant to online learning. It could be because it's not individualized to the student. It could be because of the nature of the online learning and the student's disability, but something to bring up, and you can ask for tips on how to engage your student. See what recommendations they have. So during this time, nothing's going to be perfect, but you can set a schedule, keep to it if at all possible, communicate with your district, and try to be cooperative in any way possible. Okay, another question. My child's school is an approved non-public school, and the school is not on their list on the form to get a device. I was told by the DOE that these types of schools are not on the list, and they didn't know when they would be on the list. Reach out to your child's school directly and see what, if anything, they recommend. Some schools are providing devices directly to the students. Some are deferring to the Department of Education. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis, but document who you spoke to, what information you got, and that's really what you can do for now. Okay, after your student returns back to school, that's going to be the time that you can assess whether or not the department or the district failed to fulfill any obligations, or if they tried to provide a program in the best way possible for your student. And be sure to take care of yourselves at this time. Nothing's going to be perfect, like I said before, but you can do what you can. Follow these tips, keep a routine, whether it be, waking up early to exercise or taking some time at night to read a book or watch a TV show, and take care of yourself as well. My son's IEP meeting is next week virtually. However, CSE did not conduct the evaluations we requested for his IEP. He received a letter. The evaluations were not approved with no explanation. I'm sure CSE will give him the services we need for September and secure his seat. How do we handle evaluations going forward? I think that's something you bring up at the meeting. I don't know all of the facts here. I don't know when the evaluations were requested, what types of evaluations, but bring it up at the meeting, see what, if anything, they propose. And always, if you have any more questions, you can reach out. Amanda will provide my email on our website. We could get further suggestions there too. Any suggestions on documenting if there is regression that will help justify an extended school year? I think that in that notebook you can have a section for regression too. If you're seeing skills go away, I would note them. He was able to do this prior, or he's no longer able to do this, and put the date if you can, or a rough estimate. Is the classroom teacher in a special needs school required to meet with your child every day to go over the work they send home? So whatever your student's IEP says, the school should be following. So if he's in his classroom 5 hours a day, technically he should be getting 5 hours a day of instruction. If he's supposed to be getting speech 2 times a week, he should be getting speech 2 times a week. So yes, the teacher should be meeting with the students, not just sending homework. How do you recommend we continue with planning for next year when our current year goals will likely not be met? I postponed the meeting until there's more clarity. Was that the wrong thing to do? I think that that's something that you have to assess. The goals might be different now because the circumstances are different now. This situation was out of everybody's control. So it might be that, you know, the goals are going to be different than they would have been if the student was still in school. But I think you have to take it from where you are now. I don't think having a meeting is a bad idea, but it's up to you, and it's up to what you feel your student needs, and if you want to talk out with the department and or the district on what they think as well during this time. Okay, any other questions from anyone? Okay, I don't see any other questions coming up. Remember, we're going to get through this. Stay safe, everybody. Oh, one just popped up. An IEP is a legal document. How can a school district get away with not meeting or contacting our child during distant learning? Thus far, they're refusing Zoom and telephone services, simply sending emails to check in. Yes, so an IEP is a legally documented. It's a contract, essentially. So this is why it is important to document what is going on. So when this does end, you can see what, if anything, should be done from there. My son lost 140 plus therapy sessions in 2019 and now is missing all therapies as well. I'm looking for an impartial hearing. So, you know, obviously that's a right that you have. And I think it's important to continue documenting in order to prove exactly how many sessions were missed. Okay, everyone, take care. Have a great rest of your night. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us on our website or at my email address, and take care.